let's now move on to uh, another sector. We have the pleasure of having with us a very powerful lady from a very boisterous sector. Shipping normally is, shippies are uh, infamously very boisterous people, but here in India we have a very firm hand of Mrs. H.K. Joshi, who's the chairman of managing director of the largest shipping line in India. What is commendable with her, of course, one, she's a very powerful woman heading a public sector organization, shipping on top of that, which is notoriously infamous for behavioral issues, not the shipping corporation, but uh, all kinds of rowdy behavior, alcoholism, etc., is kind of common in shipping industry, and so thriving in that and managing the boys in from stop being boys could be a very key challenge. Keeping the shipping lines working, it's a very complex system. Shipping Corporation of India is the flagship career for India in the shipping line. So much of diverse clientele, from carting chemicals to carting petrochemicals, petroleum, food, all kinds of stuff. So much of diversity is to be managed. I'm sure that it cannot be done without very strong processes in place. Normally, we associate processes, procedures, and discipline with the private sector, but I think Shipping Corporation of India has done a commendable job of doing a standardized process and ISO-based risk management approach. And we would love to hear from you, madam, as to how you have done that, and more importantly, in the next 5 years, where do you see Shipping Corporation of India go? How important is its role going to be? So over to you.
Chairman, Scotch Group, MD and editor of Scotch Group, distinguished panelists and dignitaries, मेरा विनम्रता भरा नमस्कार आप लोग सबको. I am very grateful to the chairman Scotch Group for giving such a warm introduction and setting the tone for my address today. As introduced by Chairman Scotch Group, Shipping Corporation of India is the largest shipping company in India, and it is by far also the most diversified shipping company in terms of the fact that we operate in all segments of shipping. And I'd like to take my journey. I joined, of course, we are a 60-year-old young company, and we are into our Diamond Jubilee celebrations this year. And despite the COVID, there was no dampening of our spirit, and we had the Honorable Minister kicking in our Diamond Jubilee celebrations, which coincided with Gandhi Jayanti. And I've almost been in the chair now for more than a year. And of course, I happen to be the first woman chairperson of Shipping Corporation of India. So I'd like to, first of all, compliment the Scotch Group for bringing all of us together with the wonderful concept of one nation, one platform, an ideology superimposed with good governance. We couldn't have got a better combination. Compliments to the Scotch Group. This being a 68th summit itself speaks volumes about their dedication and service to the nation. I could actually continue in my appreciation for them. However, I have a role to play and I have to limit myself to the job I have been assigned. So I shall first talk about the company I represent, and I shall follow it up by the initiatives which have been taken at the ministry level, which will help us to see the perspective 5 years down the line, as Chairman Scott brought out. And I shall also conclude by bringing out the support and vision of our Honorable Prime Minister with relation to the maritime sector, bringing out the importance of this sector, considering that we are on the panel of transport. Now, talking about the highlights of SCI during the pandemic, I'd like to inform our August gathering over here that SCI, despite the pandemic, actually made record-breaking financial performances. And the company has consistently been reporting a profit of over 100 crores every quarter. And this is quite a trendsetter in terms of the fact that the company did not get inhibited by the constraints of the pandemic, is what I'm trying to drive in. And the cumulative profit of the company today for the immediately last 4 quarters that I've been in the chair is 847 crores. And with this, decade performances as well as quarterly performances of over half a century have been surpassed in terms of total revenue, operating revenue, or profit after tax. Of course, our emphasis on compliance, best governance practices, and robust safety management and our integrated management systems are obviously the backbone which helped us to sustain through this pandemic. Despite the pandemic, the company was amongst the first among the both Maharatna as well as the Navratna companies to adopt its accounts in May 2020 when the peak pandemic was at play. And as you know that the company is based out of Mumbai, and Mumbai happened to be most impacted by the pandemic, but still we completed our statutory audit, we completed the Comptroller and Auditor General's audit, we got a clean report from both our statutory auditors as well as from C&AG, and we adopted the accounts in May 2020. Going further, the company also set a record of being the first Navratna company to have held its AGM without taking any waivers, taking any extensions. This I'm bringing out only to reaffirm the fact that the company did not get disrupted by the lockdown or the pandemic, and the operations continued undeterred, uninterrupted throughout the pandemic. I want to place on record that the company did not shut down even for an hour. A day or a week is a long time. And this itself is demonstrated in these parameters, these performances, which I'm bringing out before the August gathering. So, as Chairman Scotch had commented, even though I'm a woman, I think I've proved my mettle. And the pandemic was the most challenging time when most leaders, whether it was of countries or of organizations, had a very difficult time, and even economies have shown a downturn. What to say of companies and businesses which got disrupted? And here, Shipping Corporation was shining through the pandemic. So I think that speaks volumes about our being able to assimilate and motivate and drive our team despite all the bad qualities or certain bad things which are associated with the industry. I think the presence of a woman brought in some discipline, and we could actually improve on our own records of a decade. This astounding performance, like I said, was also because of the company's preparedness to the required response to COVID, and the pandemic, despite the negativity about it, I think the pandemic gave the company the first business continuity plan. The company did not have, we have excellent processes and systems in place, but there was no concept of a business continuity plan. And the pandemic made us realize that the company needed a business continuity plan. And this business continuity plan supported by standard operating procedures for both onshore and offshore. And with respect to the awareness through the regular and the innovative communication that we had, and very good guidelines with respect to work from home, and empowering the employees with various employee engagement initiatives help the company to strive through very successfully and deliver these astounding financial performances. Our seafarers, as we always recognize, are our key workers. They were the key workers for the entire maritime sector, and they were the ones who actually helped to make essential goods and services available during the pandemic throughout. Our coastal shipments with respect to crude oil continued uninterrupted during the pandemic. I have a lot to owe to our fleet and the seafarers, and Chairman Scott I must say they really behaved themselves during the pandemic. There was no negativity at all. And I uh, give my compliments to my entire team, both ashore as well as on the fleet. And the
Thank you very much. We need more such sobering influence across sectors, and thanks for that wonderful presentation. And from sea to the air, let us move to yet another formidable woman who's joining us on the panel today, Mrs. Meenakshi Malik, Director Commercial, Air India. I am proud to be an Air Indian in the sense I don't work for Air India, but I only fly Air India. Always. And whenever there is a negative thing or anything comment or sarcastic something on the social media, I am the first one to jump to the defense of Air India. I think it's a beautiful career. It has the finest cabin crew flying the Indian skies. It is the finest pilots flying the Indian skies. And I think what COVID has told us and taught us is possibly also has the finest administrators in India. I really am thankful to you for a great from all of us for the wonderful work that Air India has done during COVID and we continue to do so. And we are really hopeful that you never get sold, you never get disinterested, you just get empowered, and you keep Air Indian flying higher and higher. Over to you, Mrs. Malik, on what is it that Air India has done and where do you think you're going?
Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words. It is really an honor to be here today and to be part of this very, very august gathering. And I am very humbled by all that you have said about Air India. Yes, I always, we Air Indians are a very proud lot. Whatever the society and public, many people say many things, but we Air Indians feel very proud and we consider ourselves the second line of defense in this country. Wherever there has been a crisis, whenever there has been a crisis, every Air Indian has put his best foot forward. So during COVID times also, again, Air India has had been part of a brilliant move with the government supporting us totally. When by end of March the flights were disrupted and were shut down, even then our flights we started moving lot of cargo from China, which actually the first round of PPEs and every mask, gloves, and goggles which came in from China, and that time we had no choice. We took in flights to very crazy places. I put a map of China in front of me and started looking at it. Where was Dalian? Where was Guangzhou? Where was Shanghai? And so we started from there, and even now we went into 74 destinations globally, which we never went before. So we went into 74 destinations, which we were earlier we were only operating to about 40 destinations. We went to Lagos, we went to Armenia, Azerbaijan, where there was war, and we started bringing up people. And we always talk about pilots and cabin crew, but there were ground people who were working. We lost few people, some of our officers we lost two officers to COVID, at the ground level. And even we never thought I could get into an aircraft into Lagos and bring it out, but we started bringing people out of Lagos also. We went to Armenia, and now we fly from Australia to New Zealand right up to Toronto and Vancouver. And on a daily basis, we are bringing in even now lot of passengers. The process continues. So we started with Vande Bharat, which Government of India brought out this brilliant program from May. From May 6th, we started participating in Vande Bharat, and till end of November, we have carried about 5.5 lakh, 6 lakh passengers into India, and some have also gone out of India also. And on top of it, huge amount of cargo has been carrying on. It's about 20, 30 tons, lakh ton, thousands of cargo has also been moving. And then again, government did another very interesting program. It was called the Udan Lifeline in Domestic. When there was nothing moving at that time, in the month of end March, April, we started moving shipments of medicines and very, very crucial items all over the domestic network also, carrying this. We had only aircrafts, we don't have freighters. So we converted our passenger aircrafts into freighters. We started, loading aircraft medicines and items on the seat and the bellies, and we started carrying, cargo to every point on corner. I remember we started with one flight to Aizawl. One fine night, we got a call. We have to carry medicines to Aizawl. We put that aircraft, put the seats together, and we started carrying. So these were very interesting things which has happened. And now we stand at a point where we know aviation globally has been hit the maximum. The other day I was talking to some Lufthansa people, and they say their revenue has fallen, and it is 15% of pre-COVID times. But Air India now is holding at 41%. And Chairman Scotch is saying, hope Air India doesn't get privatized, but we are standing on the threshold of privatization. That's why I'm a little rushed because I have to rush for a meeting which is, dealing with these issues. So, so these things are continuing, but every officer, every field officer has been putting his best, whether it is, and the best part of COVID which has come out is everybody has learned to work, whether at home, whether outside office, and where we never thought we could make money out of cargo as much as we are doing now. We are putting aircraft seats down when we started carrying cargo, and it's all added to the whole network, and we feel that we are doing relatively well in this COVID times, where other major airlines of the world are doing worse than us. If I compare with my colleagues in Star Alliance, they are at a 15% revenue, where I'm at a 41% revenue. And uh, and I'm very honored and very happy to hear my predecessor, who's Mrs. Joshi. She spoke about her AGMs already done. Of course, I can't say that about ourselves, but aviation being in such a critical situation, like to start it also domestic, there was so much concern ki how will people be safe on the aircrafts. Then we ensured that with every aircraft was sprayed. We have blocked 9 to 10 seats on every flight, so that if somebody is sick, we put them on the rear, away from every passenger. We give PPE kit to every middle passenger who's sitting on the middle seat of the passenger. We give visors, we give masks to everybody. So we have increased, and every international flight which takes off, every crew is done RT-PCR test. So every crew is, only if they're negative they're put on board. So this has added to the cost, but we have carried on because the priority was safety first. So these are the certain measures which have been taken, and if we look at it, the government with all domestic carriers have also done relatively well. We are doing relatively very very well in the domestic front, which maybe other airlines have not done so well, other global destinations. But in India, whether Air India or others, we have been doing very well. And most of our flights, like now, even now, we go into many countries which we go with one-way loads. One way, because those countries have blocked us. We do not carry passengers out of India. We bring them back. So we are doing with lot of losses, lot of constraints, but we do it. To bring back every Indian which was there. We were ensured that every Indian who is suffering out of India, we bring them back. So with this mission, Air India, and the government of India has worked tirelessly for the last 9 months, and I hope we continue to do that. And we have developed a special bubble also with about 19 countries. So even now, though the global aviation has not started, with some countries we do only bubble flights. So they bring into India and we go into these countries. So this bubble arrangements also have been arranged by the government of India. So all these factors have been ensuring that the lifeline, people, medicine, equipments all keep moving at very very tight time limits. Even now, as chairman mentioned about vaccine movement, I have already started doing some groundwork on that. We are getting ready for having air conditioned containers. Those are very expensive proposition. We are looking at that, so that if required, we'll be able to carry vaccine from any point to any point in the globe. With our aircraft there, we can do it from any point to any point. Within 15 hours we can carry items. So we are looking at that also and ready to roll on that. And with this, I will ask you to excuse me, because thank you so much for having us on board. Thank you, sir. And with with all your best wishes, we see what happens, what is in store for us December coming. Thank you. All the best.
Yeah,
Thank you,
God
sir.
bless you. You'll do well. Whatever happens, you will do very, very well.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
wonderful. Yes.
With your permission, I would like to leave now. Thank you so much. Thank
Please do. Please do.
thank
Please go ahead.
thank you, sir.
So
Thank you.
from, yeah, pleasure. So from sea to the air and back to the sea, shipping, of course, cannot work without containers. Even, containers work is very integral part. And when the goods move, economy moves, so does infection. And I think one of the critical areas for all such movement is how do you do so in safety without putting your personnel at risk, without putting public health um, at risk, and still grow and make sure that the organization is moving. And one such organization, of course, is Container Corporation of India. We have Mr. Santosh Kumar Jha, Executive Director from Container Corporation. So, who's going to talk to us about how did the Container Corporation face up to this challenge, and what is it that they changed to make sure that in the face of pandemic, the operations are not impacted? Mr. Jha? Gulshan, do we have him? Okay, in the meanwhile, let me come to another organization, which is RITES. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra for several years now. And what a wonderful person he is, such clarity of thought. He works for a consulting organization, but behind it is because of the strength of this uh, consulting organization that a lot of sectors in transportation specifically, whether it's railways, whether it's metros, whether it's other highways, move, but for the vision. So he's done a formidable job in was I muted?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So, so one, of course, we would like to hear from him. How is it that they have responded? More so, there must be some, great lessons for an organization like RITES that have happened because of the pandemic. And moving forward, is the transportation sector going to look any different? What is it that is on your radar for moving forward? And also, if you could briefly share some of the corporate citizenship efforts that you put in, and we're very thankful to you. We happen to be your neighbors in Gurgaon in Haryana, and I believe you've served the community in Gurgaon as well as Haryana very well through your CSR. And God's blessings be added to that. And do share your views.
Thank you, Mr. Kochar. Good morning to all of you, and thanks to other members of Scotch team for giving me this opportunity. A very brief introduction of what RITES does. We are basically a consulting organization handling all infrastructure sector projects, whether it is railways, highways, airports, ports, etc. We have worked so far in about 55 countries, and presently we are working in 9 countries and about 12 offices in India. The key business segments, just a very brief overview. Besides consulting, we also handle export of rolling stock to several countries. We also do an interesting business of locomotive leasing, possibly the only company which is doing locomotives leasing in the country. We also do turnkey execution of railway projects and a subsidiary company handling power management, procurement of power and renewable energy for railways. So suddenly when this March shutdown came, we were actually caught unaware because a lot of people keep traveling, a lot of projects in India and overseas. In line with everything else, we also had to shut down, and not only in India, we had a shutdown of operations in Sri Lanka, Mauritius, some people who were working in Mozambique, Bangladesh, Nepal. So there was a complete, unprepared sort of challenge before us. And I'm happy to share that we kept working on the priorities. 2 things I would like to highlight: that our locomotive leasing business, we have 62 locomotives working in the country, handling ports, power projects, mining, and construction projects, except 3-4 which were handling construction of railway lines. Almost all continued throughout every hour during pandemic to take care of the power generation requirements, coal movement, steel movement, etc. And this was done, say, throughout the country. Our windmill, in fact, there was a repair required. It was done in March end itself, and it generated highest, say, renewable energy during the pandemic period, interestingly. Then we kept working on key projects where certain designs and other contracts were to be released. So we made sure that the technical experts, they get those equipments or specialized computers at their home. Especially during April, almost everybody was given a facility to work from home with equipment supplied from office. This kept us moving. We also kept on working on several tenders wherever this was possible, and would like to just quote 1 or 2 examples. Possibly the biggest export order concluded by any company, I can say, whether public or private, in pandemic. We negotiated this in April and May, and signed one export order for 710 crore rupees on 8th June. Again, all done through digital modes and digital, say, negotiations and signing, also exchanged through digitized copies. So this export order is now under execution at MCF Raebareli and DLW Varanasi. we should start these exports shipping out from January onwards. Also on the commitment of employees, almost say April was almost entirely whosoever could work from home. But as soon as things started, getting permissions from government for government companies, we started opening office somewhere around end of April. And as Madam Joshi also said, we are a listed company. We concluded our AGM, all accounts, 6 countries accounts, 12 locations in India, and 2 subsidiaries, all completed, audited, and AGM was held on 26 August itself. This company had seen a growth of about 20% per year in last 5 years. So the pressure on the management was not to wait, find out whatever solutions are possible for getting ready when the opening up starts. So during this period, we got some foreign orders also. We got an order from Bangladesh. We got an order for a project in Nepal. And I think this has given us enough, I will say, momentum to catch up with the revenue realization as things started normalizing. We are still not facing normalcy at the construction site. I will say the level is almost 70 to 80% only. But within these limitations, we started moving fast. One more incident I would like to share, which actually was unusual. We do a lot of inspection for Indian Railways. Almost 40% of Indian Railways procurement is pre-inspected by us. There are a lot of imports involved. Now, suddenly there was a shutdown. No foreign travel was possible, and the equipments were ready at the plants for 2-3 weeks. Yes, nobody could do anything. We had to then find a way out. We quickly decided to find some alternatives. We appointed some nominated agencies who are accredited with certain global agencies to inspect on our behalf under video supervision of our engineers. I think this was a very good move done in May mid. And then people started clearing the goods from different countries. Whenever the shipments started or the movement of trucks was allowed, things started coming to India, and the production lines resumed for rolling stock uninterrupted. With this, I will say that a lot of credit goes to my team in RITES, who throughout the country, they rolled out their activities as soon as things were possible to do safely. And I'm happy that we have not suffered any casualty in any of these areas. People are following the norms. On the transportation sector, I would like to highlight that we are going through a very transition time in the country in terms of our future preparedness for movements of goods and passengers. We are seeing capacity easing investments like electrification or doubling of third line. All that, of course, is in public domain. The 2 DFCs which are under construction, West Corridor, East Corridor, I mean, they should be seeing light of the day maybe by end of 21. Now, this not only will change the way the logistics are happening in the country, we will also work on the logistic parks which work for connectivity between rail to highways. And also an interesting insight for which I raised this example. RITES is the nominated agency which is working on border connectivity projects. We have done so far 6 integrated checkposts, we call it ICPs, which are like airport-like facilities on the borders with Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar. We have done with Pakistan also, Wagah border. Here, rail connectivity is also being ensured. Most of these have got rail connectivity. Once these DFCs are ready, actually we can see a significant change in the regional connectivity for freight movement as well as passenger movements also. These are going to be happening times for railways and for the region as such. We are seeing momentum on the high speed. We are seeing momentum on the metro mobility. So I think with this, company sees its hands full for times to come, and the NIP, National Infrastructure Pipeline, actually creates a lot of hope for companies like us. With this, I would like to thank the team from Scotch again for giving me a chance to share my views on what we have done during pandemic, as well as on the transportation in general. Sorry, I missed out one point, Mr. Kochar, on the CSR. CSR, even during pandemic, we kept working on projects which needed attention immediately. Whether it is a local community or health or the mass or some there is one old age home near Bandwari. Some 500 people are there, orphan people are there, so they needed very urgent attention. I myself went there to see that what can be done for them, and we did a bit there also. So with this, I thank you for noticing our efforts at community level also. Thank you.
Pleasure is ours. And let me share a secret. My points man for showing the great work of public sector is actually Mr. Nirmal Bansal, who is a senior fellow with us. He's been in the public sector. He's a very avid public sector watcher and very good commentator. And, I kind of draw upon his strength and expertise to pull together anything that we have to do on public sector. So, Nirmal, I'd like to bring you in at this juncture to share some of your perspective and how relevant public sector is during such pandemics, and where do you see it going?
Thanks, Samir, for your kind invite to me for this. I was not expecting, because all the people have spoken very well. Because what is happening, that I'm also an admirer of that public sector in India, because without that, India cannot work. Whatever we say, whether that privatization or the disinvestment or whatever the case may be, but that this public sector will play a vital role. In all the areas, whether it's energy, power, consultancy, rail, or aviation, shipping, you name out that public sector is there. And in telecommunication also, take example BSNL, where everybody is playing the vital role. Because what is happening, that if we talk about the coal or we talk about the steel, everywhere, without their contribution, India will not be anywhere. I don't have the ready data that what they are doing, but I can say that out of so many public sectors, maybe around in total 350, including the mini Ratna, the smaller and the Maharatnas, that biggest one, they are doing the fantastic job. Starting from, you can say that ONGC, that BHEL, NTPC, the bigger name, that Indian Oil, and PFC, REC for that way, that RISE, Aircon, and the railway, and that other railway PSUs also. So what, I must tell about Scotch also, that what initiative they are taking in bringing in all these PSUs, including that Shipping Corporation, Container Corporation, and railways also, at a platform and giving an opportunity to showcase what they have done during this pandemic time, and wherever we heard all PSUs, they have done wonderful job, and we are so glad that had they not been here, what would have happened to the country, So now everything was controlled, every supply was maintained, that all the essentials were given, and they had done their regular job also without much casualties. So my compliment to all the PSUs, and my compliment to Scotch also for bringing in all the PSUs at one platform and understanding from them that what wonderful contribution they have done to the country. God bless our democracy. God bless.
Sanjay, I'm on a conference, I'll call you.
So that's it from my side, Samir.
Thank you, Nirmalji. We also have with us Mr. Bhushan Mohan, who's like a digital planner or a digital architect or a future visionary. So, Bhushan Mohanji, how do you see public sector responding to the change environment, and more so from a technology perspective? Do you think they have been up to the mark, and what is it that they can do more to be more competitive?
Public sector, Kochar Saab will play and has been playing a very, very vital role in the development of the especially the infrastructure, because right now what we are talking and this particular forum is right now on the transportation and infrastructure. So I think what public sector can do is far, far more than what the private sector or the other sectors are doing or are capable of doing. The problem and limitations are there with the public sector. They are constrained by a lot of rules, regulation, restrictions. They don't have that much of liberty. But given a little more free hand, I think what public sector can do would really be very, very significant, especially when you look into the area like roads, the road construction. In fact, if you see, most of the road construction is today being done by the public sector. Public sector in the sense it is controlling all that thing. So because you cannot just uh, make it private, because the planning and everything has to be done. Now it has to be integrated with the other services. Road has to get integrated with the railway services. Rail and road together account for the 100% of the transportation. Rail takes care of about 40%, the balance is with road. And in rail, we include the multimodal services also, like the container services, which are an integral part of it. When we come to the international, then it is the shipping and the airlines which come up in a very, very major way. And I think Air India, we had a fantastic presentation from Air India. They have done an excellent job. Shipping Corporation, I think they have been doing excellent job. And like the Shipping Corporation mentioned, they are in the all segments of there, whether it is the coastal, whether it is a container, whether it is the discrete component. They're doing all those areas and they're covering all those things. Yes, what we have to develop much more, again, that's an area where again the public sectors are doing, are the inland waterways. That is an area which has been neglected so far within the country. That also has to come up. I would again say there is yet another area which is very important. That's the ports, because the ports are the landing ground for the shipping. That is an area which is also getting developed very well. Yes, there are a lot of private players which have come up now. I think they've really added to the thing. But if you see the older ports, which are taking care of almost 70 to 80% of our imports and exports, are still being managed by the public sector ports. What we need as we go along over the next 5-10 years is more and more of integrated operation. The shipping lines are totally dependent upon the ports. The ports are totally dependent upon the railways and the road transport. So all these things have to get integrated, and our vision for each one of them have to be what they are going to do for their key customer stakeholders. I think that is what is extremely important. The technology has moved very fast. Most of these organizations have exploited the technology very, very well. I think railways have exploited it very well. The ports have done it very well. The shipping lines have done it very well. Airlines have been one of the pioneers in this. So, and with the new technologies coming, I think what they can offer to their customers and clients, and what it can offer in the integration of the services, is something which will take us to the next level. So that is what I would like to submit.
Well, thank you very much, Bhushanji. I would like to ask a question to Mrs. Joshi. Mrs. Joshi, where do you see Shipping Corporation going? What's the future of shipping per se? And within this change environment, what do you think panning out? Also, with all these petroleum pipelines coming, is it going to impact your business?
Yeah, so Chairman Scotch, I'd like to inform you that I'm sure you are aware the company is currently under the process of disinvestment. So we have the process of the strategic disinvestment has already been initiated, and we are moving ahead. So I really don't know going down the line whether the company would remain a public sector or would be in some capable private hands. But as far as the shipping is concerned, the government is very, very clear about the fact that they want the Indian tonnage to grow. And because of that, there are several new legislations which the government is trying to bring in. So regardless of the fact whether shipping corporation remains in the public sector or moves on to the private hands, I see the company growing substantially because the fundamentals of the company are very strong. We've got, like you had earlier mentioned, we've got good processes and systems in place. I would also like to inform the House that shipping corporation is already foraying into inland waterways also, and very soon this year we should be making our presence felt even in the inland waterways, because we have a wholly owned subsidiary already ready to into operations based out of Kolkata. So the way I look at shipping corporation, I think it's going to grow much more. We are already in the process of acquiring some tonnage even right now in the pandemic. And of course, it will all depend upon how the transaction with respect to the disinvestment goes forward. So there is a little amount of uncertainty with respect to the future as of now, how it will shape up. Because as you know, leadership and ownership does make a difference to the organization. So I think we all need to wait and watch, because none of us have that crystal ball to really uh, glance into the future and say what the future is going to hold for the company, because we are at that cusp of uncertainty currently. But as far as the management is concerned, I can very positively and strongly tell you, regardless of who the owner is going to be, the management is working full zeal to ensure that there is value for all the stakeholders, including the shareholders. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was indeed a very good answer. We have Mr. Sanjay Gupta from Air India. So Sanjay, if I may ask you, know, airlines has been one of the worst hit industries due to the pandemic. How do you see the airline business change? Is it going to change because of this uh, pandemic? Because this may not be the last one, you know, there may be more coming, and then there will be quarantine things in the future. Is if you were to look at the future, what do you see it
Yeah.
like?
So first of all, like every adversity, that challenge that it brings in, it also brings in lots of learning with it. So this particular occasion is something like we learn to live with the adversity and starting afresh the way we did. So pandemic is no more a challenge, at least for us. It is now for us to make the people change their perception about the safety, and we have been quite successful about it. If you see domestic, the number of people traveling in the domestic network today is around 2.25 lakhs, which is almost half or little more than half of what used to be the pre-COVID times. And international also, the restrictions are there by the other countries. Otherwise, we are quite open to carrying people everywhere across the globe. And what I personally see is one of the biggest learning from this we have come to is that now the travel is getting no, people are not traveling more for business, but we would now have to find ways and means to encourage air travel and find reasons for the people to travel. What happens is tourism, that industry has to open up. So what, like this pandemic has video conferencing has brought in one of the biggest challenge. And while it is good for everybody, but it plays it is little counterproductive for the airline business. People are no longer traveling for the business. So what I see personally, that tourism industry, hotel industry, airline industry will have to join hands together in future and make it more viable for people, and make them feel safe. That and so that, but I'm very sure that by the end of next year, we would be anytime better, or at least at par with the our pre-COVID levels.
So fantastic. So if anybody has any questions on the panel to any of the panelists, now is good time to ask any comments, any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask.
One question, please.
Yeah, sure.
See, I myself have worked for more than 40 years in public sector, and let me tell you that things would have been different had the PSUs not really performed during this era, this period. Now, what I feel is that sense of serving and not profiting has been the motto of PSUs. So, if Mrs. Joshi is there, I would like to know, because according to me, this is one thing, and secondly, leadership plays a very important role during these periods. So, I would like to know from Mrs. Joshi, if she is there, how much you think is leadership responsible in your performance?
Mr. Mohan, it's very difficult to sing your own praise, and I think ideally, and women are conservative about blowing their own trumpet as well. And I think it's always good if you keep silence and your work speaks for yourself. So I think the financial results, as well as all the uninterrupted, undisturbed performance about the company, which I have detailed over the last 4 quarters, should speak for itself, and I would leave it for the audience to judge how much of that was the contribution of the leader. I don't think it's in good taste if I speak about it myself. But in terms of your bringing out the fact that the public sectors were primarily with a service motto and not so much on the profitability front, I think I tend to disagree with that in the current scenario, because while you are very right, when the country got independence and there was a need to build up the economy and the systems and the social infrastructure, the public sectors were set up at that time with a certain objective in mind. But I think over a period of time, since we've also had now private sector foraying into most of the sectors where the public sector was there earlier, the public sector is today expected to compete with its private sector peers and deliver not only in terms of profitability, but also value to the shareholders. So I think gone are the days when the public sector was only supposed to fulfill its service objectives, and even public sectors which have majority government stake, even the government today expects good returns on its investments in the public sector. So profitability has become a major criteria. For your information, I'd like to say that every public sector has to enter into a memorandum of understanding with its administrative ministry with respect to its ongoing and the future financial year, of which 50% weightage is on the financial parameters. So even the memorandum of understanding with the administrative ministry is now quite emphatic on the financial results of the public sectors. I hope that answers your question, or I'm open for further clarification should you need more.
Yeah, thank you very much. We also have a question from Mr. AKM Sharma. Mr. Sharma, would you like to ask your question? You can unmute yourself. You're permitted to talk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kochhar. I was just asking, with the restrictions by the DPE in terms of emoluments, with the restrictions on the minimum 90 days to engage a contractor, how and what can be done to be at par with the private sector? I was just asking this question.
Anyone specific on the panel you would like it to be responded to, or it's open to anyone?
I'm happy to answer that question if Nobody else
Yes.
in that?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so while you are very right that there are several restrictions and there are several guidelines and there are very lot of government financial rules which are applicable to the private to the public sector, which are not applicable to our contemporary peers in the private sector. But I think therein lies the challenge, where the public sector is today competing very well with the private sector despite all these constraints and rules and regulations which are there on us. I think therein comes in a little bit of a point which Mr. Mohan had just asked. It's not the service part that the public sector still has to perform, but yes, the government policies are still expected to be carried on the shoulders of the public sector. And so long as the shareholding is majority with the government, I think the public sectors will have to play that role to support the economy with respect to the government policies. Thank you.
I got a question for Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra. May I?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
yes.
Mehrotra ji, we are known to a long time to each other, and you have been for the past 10 years as the CMD of RITES, I suppose, and you've been doing the wonderful job, particularly in the CSR activities which you have been doing, I think in Nuh or in Mewat, and ambulance providing, and the Earth Savior organization which is there at Gawalpadi, after Gawalpadi in Mangad, you know, where you have been helping a lot. What is happening, particularly PSUs are doing such a fantastic job all over, but that work goes unnoticed. Okay, so what happens that from Scotch point of view, if you see that we have been conducting many surveys and many research and many projects, you know, assessing those and telling and bringing it on the platform, telling to the government and at the appropriate platform that these good things are being done. So what I mean suggest, any point in time when you need help of Scotch for conducting any of the surveys for that purpose, not only RITES, for others also. So we are open to that, because we can do a justifiable job so that it can be brought to a platform where people know that these things really you are doing. Okay, internally you know, but public doesn't know. So that was my point. You want to respond on that, please?
I think it's important to know the outcome of the decisions you have taken or projects we have implemented. And I've taken a note of this. And on this, I would like to share just one example, if it is not too much to harp upon this. Few years back, 3-4 years back, we got one request for doing a girls' hostel construction in Nuh district, quite interior in Mewat. And my first thought was, will these people allow their girls to go and stay in hostel? I asked the managing committee that, do you think this will happen? This is, sir, we want to actually try to make it happen. And if you help us, so we did a hostel there. And just concluding part, today, this is the only hostel where there is a written exam amongst the girls to get 1 out of 6. 1 out of 6 girls is able to get into a Mewat hostel. It is an eye-opening, say, investment or expenditure we have done. Such issues, they do get highlighted. The corporates will very confidently move with such, I will say, projects and support female child or health projects in such remote areas. And it is just 40 kilometers from Delhi.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roy, I have a question for you. You are an IAS, but looking at a cooperative society. So what's the view from corporate? Are there any constraints to performing? How do you see this Tantuja growing over the next 5 years? And what is it that you're going to change? Are you bringing about any process change, technology change? What are your future plans?
Yes, we have a plan. Annually, as a cooperative society, it is governed by the Corporation Act 2006. Every year we have to organize AGM, and in the AGM we plan for the next financial year. For the next 5 years, already we have planned, that is diversification of the business of Tantuja, that is concentration of procurement of raw materials, cotton, yarns, different types of yarns, silk yarns, chemicals and dyes. Those are the ingredients of this cottage industry. You know, or you will be learned already that in West Bengal, is not the cultivation area of cotton. So we have to depend on Maharashtra and Telangana and other cotton growing areas of India. Similarly, we have to depend on, import of raw silk, mulberry silk, eri silk, and muga silk. These are indigenous silks of India, but their production is very low. That's why we are also planning cultivation of this raw silk. Raw silk means mulberry silk, widely cultivated. Government has taken initiative. So if we can procure raw materials and supply to the weavers, it will be great help for them. At the same time, some technology intervention is required, for the production. Although looms have been developed in various ways in recent years, semi-automatic looms or automatic looms, production will be higher. And after that, production or produce, handloom products should be marketed through online also. E-commerce, we have started e-commerce for last 3 years. We have tied with Flipkart, Amazon, and Google. This online business especially was very encouraging during this pandemic situation. So we have planned in a large scale for next financial year and next years to come, so that Tuntujo can increase its turnover, as well as it can reach to the doorstep of the weavers in different districts of. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And for the participants, the live voting process is on. Do participate in that. And let me get back to, Rohan, would you like to comment? Do you have any question for anyone?
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to everyone speak this morning, particularly Mrs. Joshi, Ms. Malik, and all the great work that's happening over at RITES. In terms of West Bengal, sir, I was studying very intently the great work that's happening in Tantuja and all the effective change that you've been able to deliver at the last mile. I believe you introduced a new system of non-technical masks within your state during the times of COVID, sir. I believe it's a great technological intervention in terms of capacity building. There was previously no skill and equipment for this production in your state. Could you please help tell us how you managed to effect this change?
Yes, we are managing the total production procurement through e-procurement, then production, then our several, there are procurement centers in different districts as well as in surrounding Kolkata. And we have communication through mobiles, so that our officials can get in touch with the weavers and the manufacturers every day, and they can sort out the problems they have. So we are using mobiles and internet connection also wherever it is possible, and keeping good liaison with our ground level workers.
Well, thank you very much. With that, last but not the least, let me get back to Sharan for any final comments on this panel, and he's the master of ceremonies for the Beacons of Hope. Anyway, and we are almost there on schedule for that. So over to you, Sharan.
Thank you so much, Samir, and it's really been heartwarming to listen to such stories which have only made the country move from point A to point B. Whether it's the public sector or even the women working at the grassroots. I'm sure it's the contribution of the entire country as a team that has actually helped us alleviate from a crisis situation to on way back to the progress. And as I said in the beginning itself, we've recovered our strengths as Air India
state of transport.
an opportunity, out of a crisis, and we have come out as winners, which is very, very evidently clear.